So Monday Night Raw was last night, and I thought it was a good show. Despite it starting on a pretty sad note, I thought it closed in a great angle, which we'll get to in a second. But let's talk about how it started and how it ended, because this was the Monday Night Raw of heel turn. So basically, before the show, there were already reports from numerous, websites and sources saying that WWE feared that Rhea Ripley suffered a serious injury and she may have to relinquish the title. So when she opened the show, she came out with the sling, and that was almost a dead giveaway that she was about to do that. I won't lie, I did think it was probably a work. Like, I was like 60-40 that it was a work, because last time we saw her on Raw where she got attacked by Liv Morgan, I couldn't tell where she got hurt, right? She got hit with the chair. I was thinking when they said injury, maybe it was a concussion, but they said relinquish the title. You can work around a concussion. Right? Dolph Ziggler, he got concussed and he kept his title. Now, granted, that was probably why they took the title off of him, but he still kept it in the meantime. Unfortunately, though, for Rhea, she suffered an injury that she said she's going to be out for months dealing with. So I assume she's probably going to miss SummerSlam. So she's going to be out for quite some time. They didn't specify the injury. She had her arm in the sling. So I assume it's like a shoulder arm injury of some kind, but no clear-cut diagnosis of what the injury is. Regardless, though, she came out to the ring and she cut her promo and she shit on Liv, right? She was like, Liv is a coward. How are you going to attack me from blindside? You're going to hit me with the chair, throw me into the wall and attack me like that. I would have had more respect for you if you just did it straight up. And, the fans booed Liv Morgan, not only when she mentioned her, but when Liv Morgan came out, because after Rhea was like, oh, I'm going to come back for blood for this championship, Liv Morgan came out and she got booed. Straight up, she got booed. And, the security was holding both of them back. They didn't get physical, at least with each other, because Rhea did, I believe, headbutt one of the security guards. But yeah, the fans booed her. They did not like Liv Morgan in this segment. They booed her backstage when she was cutting a promo, and I think she could even hear the boos while she was cutting a promo, and I'm sure she probably heard that shit when she went out there. But she even said it in her backstage promo after all this was done. I believe she was talking to Kathy Kelly. She was like, yo, I'm just so confused by this reaction from the fans and the locker room. Backstage, it feels like people are mad at me for what I did to Rhea. But where was the sympathy when Rhea attacked me and injured my arm and put me on the shelf for months? Nobody was feeling bad for me then. So why should I feel bad now? The revenge tour isn't over until I become the world champion. And honestly, I'm with her. I'm with Liv. I wasn't with Liv Morgan's story for WrestleMania, because I know that was something a lot of people wanted. They were saying, Liv, let her be in Becky's spot. I don't know what those people were thinking. Liv was eventually going to have her revenge tour story at some point. I don't think she was going to be the one to beat Rhea, but she was going to get that story at some point. So it did make sense to, do that story not at WrestleMania. It made sense to do that story post WrestleMania. And I think obviously the plan was going to be Liv versus Rhea at Backlash, which I thought could have been a really good match and story. They probably could have got a couple matches out of that. But unfortunately, the problem is Liv is not Becky, and she's not as big of a star as Becky. So you're not going to put that match at WrestleMania and move a match as big as Rhea versus Becky to a B or C list pay-per-view. That's just not how this works. But I do like this segment. I like that they kind of did a double turn, because even after the segment was over, Rhea went backstage. She had like a whole group hug with the Judgment Day. Damian Priest was hyping her up. Dom was hyping her up. Finn, JD, and she walked off. She looked like a babyface. The Judgment Day group even looked like babyfaces, consoling her and everything. It's something I've said for a while, that they need to do a double turn. But I thought they were going to do it with Rhea and Becky, because I didn't think that was going to be the last match between those two. I thought they were going to keep going. I didn't see Rhea losing the title, but I saw maybe a potential double turn there, because at some point, and it was more about Rhea than Becky, but at some point, Rhea got to turn babyface. She is one of the most over stars, not in the women's division, in the company. I believe she's the most popular wrestler on TikTok in terms of views and followers. She is so popular. She is almost transcending the sport itself. She's transcending pro wrestling. There are people that know about Rhea that don't watch Raw consistently. They don't watch WWE product at all. My girlfriend, she watches, WWE because of me here and there, but she'll be on TikTok. She'll send me stuff about Rhea all the time. Rhea is just that popular, whether it's with the guys for loving her looks and her body and all that, or it's women loving her makeup, loving her aura, her style, all that, thinking she's pretty. Rhea is that big of a star. She comes out there, she acts like a heel, but she gets babyface reactions, and Liv stood no chance. She stood no chance. Of course she's going to get booed, and she's going to keep getting booed in a lot of these cities that they're going to go to in the coming weeks. And next week, they're crowning a world heavyweight champion for the women's division, or not heavyweight, but the women's world champion. And I wonder who's going to win. I'm sure it's going to be Liv. It makes sense storyline wise, have her hold that title, complete the revenge tour, and send her on like a nice heel run. Seriously, it'll be like a gradual thing, and I think it'll be natural. It'll be something that the fans gravitate to organically. And when Rhea is set to come back, there you go. That's a pay-per-view match. That's a story right there. That could be the Royal Rumble match for next year. It just depends on when, she's coming back. Like I said, I don't know how long this injury is going to take. We don't know if Rhea's even going to show up on TV in the meantime in Judgment Day segments. That's something they could do, right? If they don't want to take Rhea off TV completely, it's not like she's going to lose any momentum. She's going to come back and be just as popular as she was before, but maybe they're scared. They don't want her to lose any type of momentum. You keep her on TV as still the valet for Dom, because I can't imagine the Judgment Day at bare minimum not having tension without Rhea Ripley. And maybe they want it like that. Like I said, there's a lot of ways you could go with the Judgment Day without Rhea. We already saw they kind of had a little tease again with Finn Balor and Damian Priest on Raw. So it's going to be interesting how the Judgment Day moves without Rhea. Will Rhea come back and the Judgment Day is in shambles, already split up? Or will Rhea come back and the Judgment Day is peachy clean? Maybe the Judgment Day is running even better without her, and that causes problems. Who knows? I'm interested to see where they go with that story, though. And as far as Liv goes, I'll also say this. That division on Raw is in desperate need of a shakeup. Desperate need. They are trying to give the women TV time. They're trying to give them real stories. I get it, right? Maxine, they're shitting on her for being trash in the ring. That's her story. She's trying to get better through the Alpha Academy, teaming up with Ivy Nile, right? Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, we got the next chapter in their story on Raw, right? Indy finally cheated. She finally got on board with what Candice was trying to do, win by any means. But the problem is, these women aren't over. They come out there, they get these mild to negative reactions, and there's only a couple stars on that brand. Let's be honest, the only ones that get real reactions are obviously Rhea Ripley, who's injured, Becky Lynch, who looks like she's going to be gone for a couple of months, right? Her contract's coming due in a couple weeks. I'm sure she's obviously going to stay, but I wouldn't be shocked if she takes a break. Liv Morgan, of course, because she is over. She's popular. I'll give Liv Morgan her credit. She's not on the level of Becky and Rhea, but she's in that tier of over women in that division. And last but not least, people are going to hate this, but Nia Jax. Nia Jax is over as a heel. But she's over. She gets heel heat. People talk about, why are they putting Nia on TV? The matches suck. She's not good. She always hurts people. Yada, yada, yada. One, she actually is a lot better than she was when she started. Like when she came on the roster, she was a lot worse than what she is now. She still isn't that good, but she's better. She has improved. And also at the end of the day, y'all's reaction is why she's in that position. People boo her. They do not like this woman. They hate her guts. Now, whatever the reasons may be, that's that. But regardless, at the end of the day, she comes out and gets a reaction. That's more than what you could say for 90% of that division on Raw. The real women's division is on SmackDown with Bianca, with Bayley, with Dakota Kai, with Asuka, Kairi Sane, Jade Cargill, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton. That's the real women's division. Hell, even Charlotte, before she got hurt, she was on SmackDown. They really did Raw no favors, and the draft could not come at a more perfect time because that Raw division needs it. They need that draft. But speaking of something that I did not know I needed, Chad Gable. Chad Gable. Let's move on to the ending of the show. Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. One of the best show closing endings that they've done in a while. And honestly, one of the best entrances in Raw history from Sami Zayn in that match. So earlier on in the show, Chad Gable was being interviewed. This was like before the show even started. It was an empty ring, empty arena. Him and I believe it was the Creed brothers. They were doing some training and he got interviewed. I actually liked the segment. Sammy was like, oh, I know all of Sami Zayn's, Chad was like, I know all of Sami Zayn's weaknesses. I helped him train. You know, I taught him everything everything he knows, but I didn't teach him everything I know, right? You know, that basic promo. But I thought it was cool because it looked like, you know, it was just a different environment, right? The empty arena, the training, it looked cool, right? You know, he was even talking about how, yeah, I'm in Montreal. I'm not in a hometown like Minneapolis where I'm from. I'm going to get a negative reaction. But when I won the Olympics, I wasn't in America. I wasn't getting positive reactions. That fueled me, right? So I like that promo. Now, in the case of Sami Zayn before the match, he had one of the best entrances ever. Seriously, I loved this entrance. And shout out to these camera cuts, man. Ever since they've gotten rid of Kevin Dunn, they've been cooking. They've been cooking with the camera cuts. The show just has a different vibe and feel, and that's how it should be. It really is crazy how Kevin Dunn kept them in the same patterns for so long. But they had this great shot with Jay after he won his match with Finn Balor. He's going up the ramp in the crowd, and then he goes and walks past, I think, like all the fans like in the stadium. And it kind of looked a little forced because he was walking out of the stadium outside, but then he saw Sami Zayn. Sami pointed up. I don't know what he was pointing at, but he pointed at something up in the sky, I believe on the stadium. And he was like, last time I was here, I let everybody down, but now I'm coming back a champion. And then Sami keeps walking. He's walking through the stadium and, you know, fans are seeing him. I'm sure he has security on standby nearby, but, you know, it's kind of risky to run that kind of entrance. I'm not going to lie. Even Jay, when he made his entrance through, or when he made his exit out the arena, there was one fan who literally walked in front of him on purpose. I think he was trying to get a video and Jay kind of shoved him out the way, which I'm glad he did because what the fuck, you almost ruined the shot. But, you know, Sami's walking through the crowd. He's hyped as fuck. He even takes a Canadian flag that a fan gives him. He's hyped and then he walks through the crowd like the Shield and he's getting this monster baby face reaction. You know, his wife's in the front row. He walks down to her, kisses her, hugs her. You know, it was a great moment, great entrance. And then Chad Gable comes out and he gets booed, of course. But they have a great match. I'm not going to run through everything that happened in the match because there's just no need. All you got to know is Sami Zayn wins, gets the haluva kick 1, 2, 3, right? Because we're here for what happened post-match. But after the match, Sami Zayn goes up to his wife, or actually before he even does that, you know, him and Chad Gable, they embrace, they hug, and Sami tries to raise Chad Gable's hand, you know, but Chad then raises Sami's hand. But you could tell Chad was sad about this. He was angry about this. He wasn't happy. But then Chad just got out of the ring. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to do Chad Gable like this? They're going to do him like this? But then Sami got out the ring and he was kind of sitting on the apron just for a couple seconds. And then he walked over to, I believe maybe his father-in-law, maybe that was his dad. I don't know. Maybe that was his uncle, but he hugged some guy in the crowd. And then he went over to his wife and he kissed her and hugged her. And while all this was happening, I was like, I see. And then Chad Gable came up from behind Sami Zayn and gave him a German suplex on the floor. He threw him into the ring post, hit his face on the ring apron, threw him over the announce table, threw him back into the ring, and then gave him an ankle lock through the ropes, which I thought was really cool. And that's how they went off the air, with him giving him the ankle lock. And someone even dropped a video, I believe on Twitter, of Chad Gable after the show, after Raw went off the air. He got "fuck you Gable" chants from Montreal. I can't lie to you. That was a great show closing angle. Great angle. The last shot we see, Chad Gable giving this guy an ankle lock through the ropes. And you know, we talk all this about Chad Gable being underutilized, even though he has not won that IC title and he has lost a lot of matches. He's in the main event. You know, they do see him at some high of level. I'll never forgive or forget Vince McMahon making this guy Shorty G. Remember that? We've come a long way from those horrible last days. Not only is Chad Gable getting time, but he's seen as a legitimate guy on the roster. Even though he's a mid-carder, he's still a quality mid-carder on the roster that they can trust to be in the main event if they really had to. So I'll say this about the Chad Gable heel turn. Was it something that I initially wanted about a month or two ago? No, because I wanted him to be the babyface to beat Gunther. But now that Gunther has lost the title and that story is done, I have no problem with a heel Chad Gable, especially because it's going to breed a whole bunch of great matches with Sami Zayn, who's one of the best workers they have in that company, one of the best workers in the business. They're going to have some great matches. I'm sure they're probably going to run it back maybe at Backlash or the pay-per-view afterwards. Who knows? Who cares? I'm up for this feud. This feud could last the whole summer if they play their cards right. They could trade this title back and forth, and I'm down with that. Seriously, I am. Because here's the thing with Chad Gable. He should be pushed as a wrestling machine, as a monster. And I hate to say this because I like wrestlers building their own identities, but he reminds me a lot of a Kurt Angle, right? The moonsault, the ankle lock, the wrestling background, the corniness, like the cool corniness, the cheesiness, right? The whole thank you, all that stuff. But yet when it's time to get in the ring and be a wrestling machine, he's up there with anybody, right? He can turn on that switch. When he pulls those straps down, shit's getting real. Shit getting serious. Right? Just like Kurt Angle, he can do the comedy stuff and, you know, Jimmy Corn, you know, playing the guitar, right, with Stone Cold backstage, right? But when it's time to get serious and make Shawn Michaels tap out at WrestleMania like a badass, he can do it. He can do it because that's just who he is. And I think Chad Gable is just like that. He's just like that. He's got that dog in him. And this heel run, this was a serious angle. The man attacked him in front of his wife. And Sammy's wife is great at, you know, emoting and, you know, looking real sad about these things. She was great during the Sami and Roman Reigns match. I think she was great in this angle, just like Chad and Sami were. The only thing is, though, here's my only suggestion to WWE. You can't do this turn and this feud if Chad Gable is going to lose again. I cannot take another Chad Gable loss for that title. He has to start winning at some point for us to buy into anything he does. Or else, what's the difference between this guy and like a Dolph Ziggler or a Bray Wyatt? These guys who would come out, and granted, those guys reach heights that Chad Gable will never see. Unfortunately, I just hate to say it, I don't think Chad Gable will be a world champion. Hey, never say never, but I just don't think that's in the cards for him. But my point is, those guys either had these incredible characters, these, you know, valiant efforts. They could get the fans behind them in whatever way they did that. But when it was time to win, they didn't get the job done. And eventually, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Sure, they could go out there, have a nice match and a compelling story here and there, But we know they're going to lose in the end because that's what they were, losers. Chad Gable needs to solidify himself as a legit threat on that roster by actually winning. And maybe this heel run will convince them about even putting Chad Gable in the world title picture, because I do think eventually I would love for Chad Gable to become a world champion. I just don't see that in the cards with all the talent they have on that roster that I'm sure they're more high on than Chad Gable. They look at Chad Gable, I'm sure they see a great hand. And unfortunately, when you're seen as somebody that can be so good at making other people look good, it almost works against you, which is why I brought up Dolph Ziggler earlier. So solidify Chad with giving him real credible wins. And I'm not talking beating Ivar. I'm talking he has to actually beat Sami for that title, even if in the end he loses it, right? If they just trade the title back and forth a couple times, that's fine, even if he loses it. But you have to give him some type of credibility by having him at least win. He has to win. He has to have some type of run with that title. I'm just saying.